Students, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. Now, in our previous lecture, we had started talking about Mughal history and we had covered the topic of Mughal historiography. And now, one by one, we are going to cover the changes which took place under the different Mughal emperors, beginning with Babar. First of all, his background. And rise to power. Now, as I'm sure that you're all aware that Babar was a descendant of both Amir Timur and Chinggis Khan. Amir Timur was his paternal ancestor, and Chinggis Khan was his maternal ancestor. Right? So he was a descendant of Amir Timur on his father's side and a descendant of Chinggis Khan on his mother's side. He was the son of Sheikh Omar Mirza. His father, that is Sheikh Omar Mirza, was the ruler of a small Central Asian kingdom of Fargana. Fargana is a valley in Central Asia at the tri-junction of Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan. ठीक है? तो just north of Afghanistan वाला जो region है, वहां पे his father was the ruler. However, his father died accidentally when Babar was very young, barely 12 years of age, and that is why Babar became the ruler of Fargana at a very young age of only 12 years after his father died accidentally. Now, since his youth, Babar was extremely ambitious. His initial ambitions centered around the city of Samarkand. Samarkand was also the ancient capital of Amir Timur, and whichever ruler in that region controlled the city of Samarkand controlled the entire region of Central Asia. That is why he wanted Samarkand. However, Samarkand was under the rule of one of his uncles, who was also the ruler of Herat. So, since the beginning, Babar was eyeing Samarkand, which was under the control of his uncle, the ruler of Herat. ठीक है. Now, eventually, there was a war and Babar attacked Samarkand also. ठीक है. Babar attacked Samarkand, but he had to return empty-handed because his uncle, the ruler of Herat, had formed a strong alliance with another powerful ruler in that region known as Shehbani Khan. He was the leader of the Uzbeks. ठीक? Babar attacked Samarkand but was defeated by an alliance between his uncle and Shehbani Khan, Uzbek. ठीक है. And what was the result of this? Babar was thus pushed into an alliance with another rival of these two rulers. ठीक है. Now, in this part of the world, we are talking about यहाँ पर Uzbeks were the preeminent power. In this region, it was the Ottomans, rather, all the way to here. Ottomans. And in this region were the Safavids. These were the Shia rulers of Iran. Okay? Now, the Ottomans and Safavids were both fighting for the same territories. Both of them wanted to expand their area of influence, sphere of influence. The Ottomans and Uzbeks were both Sunnis, and thus both of them had entered into a common alliance with each other against the Safavids. Therefore, the Safavids were also looking for another ally in this region. Now, since the Uzbeks had rivalry with Babar, Babar was a very convenient ally for the Safavids. Okay? And as a result, Babar entered into an alliance with the Safavids. ठीक है. तो नेक्स्ट लिखो. Later, with the help of the Safavid Empire of Iran, Babar was able to capture Samarkand. ठीक है. But this region's politics was historically volatile. Nothing was set in stone, and very soon after this, the Ottoman Uzbek alliance was able to restore the balance of power in their own favor. And Babur was defeated and pushed out not only of Samarkand but even out of Fargana. He was forced to leave Fargana also. However, Babur soon lost control not only of Samarkand but also Fargana. And by 1504, Babur was a king without a kingdom. ठीक है, राजा तो था लेकिन कोई राज नहीं बचा था. It was in this scenario that Babur showed his grit and determination to undertake an extremely risky campaign in Afghanistan to capture Kabul. Coming very close during the course of the battle to dying himself. ठीक है? In 1504, he captured Kabul in an extremely risky campaign. ठीक? Since his conquest of Kabul, Babur had the ambition to rule Hindustan. So ever since he became the ruler of Kabul, he had been eyeing Hindustan. For Babur, what was the meaning of Hindustan? आज हम बोलते हैं हिंदुस्तान तो we consider it as the whole of India. But for Babur, it meant only North India, from Punjab up to Bengal. India north of the Vindhyas. And why was this? First of all, Kabul was economically underdeveloped and Hindustan's wealth attracted Babur. Secondly, Hindustan was witnessing political turmoil and fragmentation. Thus, it was ripe for conquest. The decentralized political administration of the Lodhis was not suitable for administrative centralization. The highly feudalistic Afghan polity was also resulting in the emergence of centrifugal tendencies. There was a great degree of infighting, and Babur wanted to exploit this to his own advantage. At the same time, the Rajputs were resurging, especially under the rule of Rana Sanga of Mewar, who was also weakening and challenging Delhi's authority continuously. So Babur felt that this is the right time to invade. And thirdly, Babur wanted to lay claim to Punjab, over which he already had a legitimate claim since he was a descendant of Amir Timur. Amir Timur had established his control over this region, and therefore Babur justified his desire to invade India on the basis of restoring his legitimate hereditary rights over Punjab. Lay claim to Punjab as the rightful descendant of Amir Timur. ठीक है. Now, from Kandahar, Babur launched several expeditions into Hindustan. Initially, his objective was to establish control over Punjab and later to defeat Ibrahim Lodi and take control of Delhi and Agra. So, from 1518 onwards, Babur invaded India 6 times till 1526. His first invasion resulted in the Battle of Bhira. Bhira is a place in Punjab in 1518. In 1522, Babur captured the strategically important city of Kandahar. Where is Kandahar? Southern Afghanistan, southeastern Afghanistan. Why is it strategically important? Because it gave a good launch pad for future invasions into India. It also was strategically important to control the region of northern Punjab. Okay? strategically important city of Kandahar, following which he brought Punjab under his control. Right. So in 1522, both these things happened. And finally, Babar defeated Ibrahim Lodi at Panipat, resulting in the downfall of the Delhi Sultanate and establishment of the Mughal Empire. Was this the end of Babar's career of conquest and military affairs? या फिर और लड़ाइयां लड़नी थी in order to actually consolidate his position in North India? Some more wars were to be fought. Write down. However, Babar's victories or Babar's victory was incomplete. Since powerful rivals remained to challenge Mughal authority. Thus, Babar needed to consolidate his position, which he did through his historic victories at Khanwa, Chanderi, and Ghaggar. 1527, 28 and 29. Battle of Khanwa between Babar and Rana Sanga of Mewar. Battle of Chanderi between Babar and Medni Rai. Another prominent Rajput ruler who was the former ally of Rana Sanga before his defeat. And Battle of Ghaggar in Bihar against Afghans. So although the Afghans had been defeated at Panipat, their power in eastern India had not been broken yet, and it was up to Babar to do this as well. Okay? So he followed up his victory at Panipat with these three other historic victories, which resulted in the consolidation of the Mughal Empire. Now, questions emerge होते हैं. For example, what were the factors behind Babar's military success in North India? Why was it that Babar was able to register victories in North India and overcome perceptibly stronger enemies with numerically superior forces? तो क्या रीजन था इसका, बताओ. First of all, Babar was unmatched in his military acumen and generalship. ठीक है? Unlike his Indian adversaries, he had grown up fighting against much stronger enemies. He had learned from his experiences, including his losses, and he had incorporated the most revolutionary strategies in warfare. So, you can further write, Babar was a battle-hardened commander forged on the battlefields of Central Asia. He had mastered Central Asian stratagems and techniques such as the Rumi and Tulguma systems. क्या है ये Rumi and Tulguma systems? Rumi was the strategy of constructing temporary fortifications on the battlefield itself using wooden carts or bullock carts etc. So अपने soldiers के around ये fortifications लगा देता था so that the enemy could not make a direct charge towards him. ठीक है? And he could continue firing projectiles from behind this defensive barrier. And Tulguma system, this was the strategy of having a cavalry reserve, a mobile cavalry reserve. So the army was not consolidated into a single block. Rather, it consisted of several units, specialized units, including archers and infantry, heavy cavalry, and light cavalry. Right? So archers and infantry would be behind the defensive battlements, या तो ditch dig कर देगा या फिर bullock carts वगैरह लगा देगा, तो उसके पीछे होंगे, so that they could not be easily charged upon directly. And these light and heavy cavalry were mobile units. So once the archers soften up the enemy, then the light cavalry units are going to be sent in. They are going to charge in order to envelop the enemy from several sides. So this strategy of using mobile cavalry units to envelop the enemy and destroy it, that is known as the Tulguma system. इसको अंग्रेजी में पिंसर मूवमेंट भी बोलते हैं. तो पिंसर जैसे ऐसे पिंच करता है ना, तो ऐसे ही ये तुलगोमा सिस्टम भी पिंच करने के लिए बनाया गया था. ठीक है. He had mastered Central Asian stratagems and techniques such as the Rumi and तुलगुमा systems. तो एक तो ये था. And what about the Indians? Write down. On the other hand, Indian forces relied upon outdated techniques such as a direct assault, using elephants and heavy cavalry. Right? Now, this heavy cavalry and elephants were completely useless in the face of battlefield fortifications and ditches. ठीक है. तो एक तो ये फैक्टर था. Second, Babar introduced a major game changer in warfare. क्या था ये? The use of gunpowder, the use of cannons and guns. Babar introduced a game changer in medieval warfare. That is gunpowder. Not only did cannons soften up and demoralize the enemy, the loud noise made by them also disoriented and confused. The enemy elephants and horses. So instead of remaining calm and focused, these elephants and horses used to turn around and trample their own men, thus creating a state of general confusion. ठीक है, तो एक ये फैक्टर था. Thirdly, what else? Hmm? हाँ, so the Lodi camp was suffering from internal division and conflict. On the other hand, Babar commanded a strong centralized army. So what we would often see is that, especially at the height of the battle, when fortunes started turning against the Lodis, many of their commanders would take their soldiers and vanish into the night. ठीक है, तो इस तरह से होता था. बाबर के कैंप में ऐसा नहीं होता था. Fourthly, many of Lodi's own commanders and nobles were actively conspiring against him. So write down, the Lodis were also compromised by treachery and conspiracy. Many of Ibrahim Lodi's closest advisors relatives and nobles conspired against him with Babar. And this Babar tells us himself in the Tuzuke Babri. They expected that Babar is going to defeat Ibrahim Lodi and then return to Kabul. But Babar had other plans, obviously. Okay? So these are the factors for Babar's victory in North India. Next, the influence of the Safavid alliance on Babar and Mughal history. Okay. So what kind of an influence do you think this had? Write down. Babar was compelled to seek an alliance with the Safavid rulers of Persia. Full stop. This gradually blossomed into a warm and cordial peacetime relationship as well. Full stop. After Babur's conquest of Hindustan, his friendly relation, his friendly relationship with the Safavids yielded fruitful results. With respect to commercial and cultural exchange. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो, नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट. The alliance between the Mughals and the Safavids indirectly alienated the Mughals from the Uzbek, Ottoman, Sunni alliance. ठीक है, growing relations between the Mughals who were Sunni and the Safavids who were Shia also led the toning down of Sunni fanaticism among the Mughals. Okay? And what is going to be the long term result of this? It is going to be extremely important in the context of India. Since the Mughals did not have a fanatical religious outlook, they were better suited than their other Sunni counterparts, such as the Uzbeks or the Ottomans, to establish a long lasting pluralistic empire in a country such as India, which was majority non Muslim. ठीक है, सब पॉइंट लिखो. Thus, the Mughals adopted a relatively more tolerant view of religion as compared to their other Sunni counterparts. As such, they were able to pursue a rational religious policy which was better suited to a majority non-Muslim country like India. Is this clear? Next main point likho. Did this alliance with the Safavids have any political impact also? What happened after Babur's death? Who became the new emperor? Humayun. Did Humayun rule the Mughal empire from the beginning to the end without any hiccups? No. He was driven out by Sher Shah Suri. और भाग के कहाँ गया था? ईरान गया था. He was given refuge by Shah Tahmasp the first, the ruler of Iran. He was also a member of the Safavid dynasty. ठीक है? So later, the Mughal Safavid alliance played a crucial role in ensuring the survival and revival of the Mughal Empire. Full stop. Sub point. When Humayun was defeated by Sher Shah Suri, he took asylum in Persia under Shah Tahmasp, the first of the Safavid dynasty. ठीक है. Later, the Persians also assisted Humayun to recover his lost empire. Okay, so he staged a comeback with their help to finally defeat the Afghans and re-establish Mughal rule. Clear? Culturally, the Mughal Safavid alliance was significant. कैसे? When Humayun returned to India from Iran, he did not come alone. He came with a number of Persian scholars and artists. For example, write down. For example, Mughal painting was heavily influenced by Persian painting. Since Humayun brought two masters from Persia who laid the foundations of the Mughal style of painting. कौन थे ये? अब्दुस समाद and मीर सैयद अली. ठीक है. So since they were themselves trained in the Persian style of painting, they also imparted the Persian sensibilities of art, Persian techniques, Persian methods and Persian themes into Mughal paintings. So basis of Mughal paintings Persian paintings se aata hai. It is only later that Mughal painting emerged as a composite form of art, especially during the reign of Akbar, जब उसमें इंडियन और यूरोपियन एलिमेंट्स का भी इन्फ्यूजन हुआ, ठीक है, लेकिन अर्ली बिगिनिंग्स पर्शियन ही है, एंड टिल द एंड दिस पर्शियन एलिमेंट रिमेन्ड रेलेवेंट. क्लियर? Philosophically also, this alliance was significant, especially while determining the position of the Mughal emperor in the Islamic world. Okay? Philosophically, this alliance was significant as well, especially while shaping the institution of Mughal kingship. दो इंपॉर्टेंट तरीके हम पॉइंट आउट कर सकते हैं जिससे सफाविद रिलेशनशिप का मुगल्स ने फायदा उठाया. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, द सफाविड्स had a long lasting rivalry with the Ottomans. While the Safavids were a Shia power, the Ottomans were a Sunni power. ठीक है? And the Sultan of the Ottomans also held the title of Caliph of the entire Islamic world. ठीक है? Since the Safavids were both Shias as well as rivals of the Ottomans, are they going to accept the position of the Ottoman Sultan as the Caliph? No. So they rejected this. ठीक है? Instead, they considered their Shah or king to be the sole and universal ruler. And thus they considered the Ottoman Khalifa to be illegitimate. ठीक है? Say they rejected the legitimacy of the Ottoman Khalifa. Is this clear? Sure. Ultimately, when the relationship between the Safavids and Ottomans improved and the rivalry cooled down, the position of the Safavids towards the Ottomans and the Caliph was also modified. While they did not contest the legitimacy of the Ottoman Sultan any longer, they did not still consider him to be superior to the Shah of Iran, to the Shah of Persia. So later, they claimed equality between the Shah and the खलीफा, ठीक है. एंड inspired or influenced by the Safavid perception of the ruler vis-a-vis the Ottoman Khalifa, the Mughals also considered their emperors or badshahs holding a position that was equivalent to the Ottoman Khalifa. While this belief had always been an undercurrent of the Mughal idea of kingship, it was expressed explicitly for the first time by Akbar, who in 1579 issued a proclamation known as the Mazharnama. क्या था इस प्रोक्लेमेशन में? Akbar declared himself to be the chief interpreter of the scripture of the Quran. This was a task that traditionally had been reserved for the Islamic ulema, the class of religious officials who had expertise in religious scripture. Now, this was also one of the tasks that was traditionally performed by the caliph. तो खलीफा की जो रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी थी, ड्यूटी था, प्रिविलेज था, वो अब अकबर ने डायरेक्टली अज्यूम कर लिया. सो ही नेम्ड हिमसेल्फ एज द चीफ इंटरप्रेटर of the faith. And secondly, he also adopted certain titles which had not even been assumed by caliphs. Rather, they had been assumed only and only, or they had been given only and only to the original Prophet Muhammad, right? Such as Insan-e-Kamil and Imam-e-Adil. Insan-e-Kamil means the perfect man, and Imam-e-Adil is the leader of justice. So these were titles which propelled the status of the Mughal Badshah over and above the Ottoman Khalifa. Is this clear? So it was very important philosophically while determining the philosophical position of the Mughal Badshah in the Islamic world. Secondly, certain Persian court rituals were also freely incorporated into the Mughal court in order to enhance the prestige of the emperor. किस तरह के rituals थे ये? Can you name them? The performance of Sijda and Paibos or Zamibos, right? सिजदा क्या होता है? एम्परर के आगे माथा टेकना, टू लाई डाउन फ्लैट इन फ्रंट ऑफ द एम्परर. एंड पाइबोस इज किसिंग द फीट ऑफ द एम्परर. जमीबोस इज किसिंग द फ्लोर एट द फीट ऑफ द एम्परर. नाउ ट्रेडिशनली इस्लाम में इन सब चीजों की इजाजत नहीं होती है बिकॉज इट रिप्रेजेंट्स द अनहोली वेनरेशन of someone who is not God, of a human being. ठीक है? So these things should be reserved only and only for God, और किसी को allowed नहीं होना चाहिए. However, in the Persian court, such rituals had been part of the court practice since the ancient period. 6th century BC से ये practice चली आ रही थी, and that is why it was part of the cultural tradition of Persia to almost venerate their emperors as living gods on earth, right? This practice was also continued by the Safavids. अब मुगल्स को अच्छा लगा, उन्होंने इसको भी अडॉप्ट कर लिया. Similarly, the celebration of the Persian festival of New Year or Nowruz. Once again, on this day, the king is worshipped and venerated almost like a god. Okay? So it was very important, or this relationship with the Safavids played a very important role in philosophically defining Mughal theory of kingship. Clear? Write down. अभी क्या लिखा है आपने? यहाँ तक लिख लिया ना? In shaping the Mughal institution, or in the institution of Mughal kingship. Write down. Sub point लिखो. Firstly, since the Safavids were the long-term rivals of the Ottomans, comma, and belonged to the rival Shia religious faction, comma, they rejected the supremacy. They rejected the ideological supremacy. Of the Ottoman Sultan as the caliph of the Islamic world. Full stop. Ottoman Sultan as the caliph of the Islamic world. Ottoman Sultan as the caliph of the Islamic world. Full stop. Next subpoint. Instead, they emphasized upon the equality of the Ottoman Caliph and the Shia and the Safavid Shah, and the emphasized upon the equality of the Safavid Caliph, Safavid Shah and the Ottoman Caliph. Full stop. Next point. Influenced by this, comma, the Mughals also formed their ideas around kingship. Full stop. Subpoint. While the early Mughal rulers, इसी का subpoint. While the early Mughal rulers recognized the supremacy of the caliph, comma, Akbar emphasized not only equality but the superiority of the Mughal Badshah over the caliph, over the caliph through his Mazharnama, through his Mazharnama. Within brackets you can write 1579. ठीक है? So this is one way. Next point लिखो. Secondly, Persian court rituals, such as Sijda and Paibos were incorporated by Akbar to enhance the prestige of the Mughal emperor, ठीक है? And last concluding remarks लिख लो. Therefore, the alliance between the Mughals and the Safavids, which emerged during the reign of Babar, produced a long lasting and comprehensive impact on Mughal history. Right? Take down a question. Discuss the importance of the Mughal relationship with the Safavid Empire for Indian history. Two 200 words, 15 marks. Okay. Next, we have to discuss the impact of Babur's conquest of Hindustan. बताओ क्या चेंजेस आएंगे इसकी वजह से? पॉलिटिकली, इकोनॉमिकली, कल्चरली, सोशली कुछ चेंजेस आएंगे क्या? फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल Babur's victories restored political unity to North India. ठीक है, except Bengal, almost the whole of North India came under Mughal central authority. Came under Mughal central authority. Secondly, Babur also restored the power and prestige of the crown. Restored the power and prestige of the crown and the position of the emperor became stronger than it had been in the preceding era. Preceding era, we are talking about the Lodi dynasty. Thirdly, Babur successfully broke the uneasy balance of power that had emerged between the Rajputs and Afghans by defeating both to establish centralized Mughal authority. ठीक है. Fourthly, for the first time after a long period, Kabul and Kandahar were ruled by an Indian emperor. And what was the significance of this? Kabul and Kandahar ये regions historically किस purpose के लिए use किए गए थे with respect to India? For launching invasions into India. Thus, India was relatively more secure from foreign invasions. As such, India was secured against future invasions from the northwest. Babur's victory also had another important impact. Yeah. India was more intimately linked with Western and Central Asia than it had ever been before, especially during the Sultanate period, right? So, Babur's victory revived India's linkages with Central and Western Asia, not only physically because Babur controlled Kabul and Kandahar, but also culturally and economically. ठीक है? Sixth, Babur adopted a relatively tolerant religious attitude and after initial conflict sought close relations with the Rajputs. And why is this significant? Because these were the practices adopted by the Mughals even later on, which they used to reach the peak of their power. Thus, Babur set the stage for the Mughal Rajput and religious policy of later rulers. ठीक है? Babur also contributed to the growth of culture. He heavily patronized literature, including authoring his own autobiography, the Tuzuke Babri, and he also introduced the Charbagh style of gardens. Thus, it was Babur who initiated the Mughal penchant for cultural patronage. Later rulers obviously are going to take it to new heights. Okay. Thus, it was Babur who initiated the penchant, the Mughal penchant for cultural activity. Okay. So this was the impact of Mughal penchant, Penchant. This was the impact of the victories of Babur. Clear? Take down a question. Do you agree with the statement that Babur was a warrior and not an empire builder? तो करना क्या है इस क्वेश्चन में? We need to evaluate the role of Babur as both a warrior as well as an empire builder. While there are very few flaws with Babur as a warrior, his career as an empire builder is quite shady. Although he had established the Mughal Empire, he failed in giving it solid foundations, resulting in several problems for Humayun. Humayun had to lose his empire before he regained it. So, should Babur be considered only a warrior and not an empire builder? क्या ये assessment valid है? Or are there some mitigating factors that should be taken into account when analyzing Babur's contributions as an empire builder? कुछ तो कोई saving graces हैं या फिर नहीं? ठीक है? So write down. It is beyond doubt. It is beyond doubt that Babur possessed unparalleled military prowess. It is beyond doubt that Babur possessed unparalleled military prowess, prowess. Full stop. Throughout his life, he fought many battles and registered brilliant success. Brilliant success. Brilliant success. Full stop. Next point. In fact, it was his military success. It was his military success that allowed him to establish a vast empire stretching from Afghanistan to Bihar. Stretching from Afghanistan to Bihar. Full stop. Next point. However, comma, it is equally true that Babar was unable to provide solid foundations to his newly created empire. Solid foundations to his newly created empire. Full stop. As a result, comma, Humayun had to face consequences. Humayun had to face the consequences. Humayun had to face the consequences when he was defeated by Sher Shah Suri and forced to flee towards Persia. Full stop. Full stop. Next point. While analyzing the role of Babar as an empire builder, comma, some essential facts should be kept in mind. Full stop. These are as follows. Number 1. Babar did not have sufficient time to carry out administrative consolidation and reform. Full stop. He remained continuously involved in warfare and could pay very little attention to provide a solid institutional base to the empire. To the empire. Institutional base to the empire. ठीक है? So his rule in India lasted only for 4 years, and during this entire time he was involved in one war or the other with extremely strong enemies. Therefore, he did not have the time to do any economic or administrative consolidation. Okay, that is one fact that should be kept in mind. Write down number 2. At the same time, Babar introduced certain measures which definitely resulted introduced several measures which definitely resulted in empire building in the future. सब पॉइंट्स में लिखो ए बी सी डी करके. ए, he destroyed the uneasy balance of power between the Afghans and the Rajputs. Uneasy balance of power between the Afghans and the Rajputs, comma, thus paving the way for empire building in North India. Next, B. He also violated the Mongol law of succession. Mongol law of succession, which called for क्या था? Mongol law of succession. After the death of the emperor, the empire shall be given to whom? Eldest son? नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होता था. It would be divided among all the remaining legitimate sons of the emperor. ठीक है? So क्या लिखा आपने अभी? Mongol law of succession, which called for the division of the empire among the sons of the emperor. ठीक है? Instead, what did he do? Write down. Instead, he nominated Humayun as his sole successor. Humayun as his sole successor. ठीक है? Now, Humayun had 3 other brothers. कौन कौन? कामरान, अस्करी एंड हिंडाल. ठीक है? इन तीनों को क्या मिला? They simply received the title of Shahzada, while Humayun received the title of Badshah. So, Babar ensured that the Mughal Empire did not split apart, did not disintegrate immediately after his death. Rather, these royal princes or Shahzadas would always remain subordinate to the authority of the emperor or बादशाह. अब हुमायूं थोड़ा नौसिखिया था, ही वॉज यंग, ही वॉज ऑल्सो वेरी इमोशनल. तो उसने अपने पिताजी की जो नसीहत थी उसको नकार दिया एंड ही मेड द मिस्टेक ऑफ हिमसेल्फ डिवाइडिंग हिज एम्पायर इनटू 4 पार्ट्स. तो अपने जो बाकी भाई थे, फॉर एग्जांपल कामरान वाज गिवन काबुल एंड कांदाहार, अस्करी वाज गिवन रीजन्स नियर हरियाणा, हिंडाल वाज गिवन टेरिटरी इन पंजाब. ठीक है, तो अपना एम्पायर ही ओवरसॉ इट्स ओन डिसइंटीग्रेशन. एंड डिड Kamran, Askari and Hindal support Humayun when he needed them? No. They in fact use Humayun's misfortune against him. तो कामरान ने और भी ज्यादा टेरिटरी कैप्चर कर लिया. So it was Humayun's short-sightedness which did not allow him to see the dangers of following the Mongol law of succession. But Babar could see in his mind कि अगर मंगोल लॉ ऑफ सक्सेशन लगाया जाएगा तो क्या खराब चीजें हो सकती हैं. व्हाट आर द डिसएडवांटेजेस ऑफ दैट, एंड वेरी वाइजली ही हैड चोजन नॉट टू डू दिस. ठीक है, सो व्हाट इज इट दैट यू हैव रिटन of the emperor in Humayun as his sole successor, thus preventing the disintegration of the empire, thus preventing the disintegration of the empire. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट, सॉरी नंबर 3 और सी है ना, ये ABC. हाँ, सी लिखो. बाबर also rejected the prevailing Afghan concepts of government and kingship. Afghan concepts of government and kingship. तो जो अफगान थ्योरी ऑफ किंगशिप था, अफगान कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ गवर्नमेंट था, व्हाट डिड इट रिजेंबल? अ हाईली सेंट्रलाइज्ड मोनार्किकल पॉलिटी और अ फ्रैगमेंटेड ट्राइबल, वी कैन से कन्फेडरेट पॉलिटी. पहला या दूसरा? सेकेंड वाला, फ्रैगमेंटेड ट्राइबल एंड कॉन्फेडरेट पॉलिटी. राइट डाउन. in place of the confederated structure of Afghan polity, comma, Babar incorporated the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty. ठीक है, ये टर्को मंगोल थ्योरी ऑफ सॉवरेंटी का बाबर से क्या लेना देना है? Because he was a descendant of both the Turks, Amir Timur, as well as the Mongols, Genghis Khan. And the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty was shaped due to the influence of these two great empire builders. ठीक है, ओवर टाइम उसमें कई सारे मॉडिफिकेशन जरूर हुए थे, बट ओरिजिनल जो आइडियाज हैं दे केम फ्रॉम आमिर तिमूर एंड चिंगिस खान. What did this Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty stand for? First of all, royal absolutism, that since there is one God, there is only one king who is his sole representative. And since the king is the representative of God on earth, his authority is supreme beyond question. Nobody can claim equality with the king. He is superior to all other human beings. Okay? So, this royal absolutism was based on the idea of divine origin of kingship. ठीक है? Further, since there is only one God, there can be only one rightful king, and it is the duty of the king to enforce the will of God upon earth. Can two kings coexist in this scenario? No, that would be a violation of God's will. Therefore, built into the essential principle of the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty was the idea of imperialism, empire building, conquest, bringing more territory, more people under the authority of the sovereign. Universalism and imperialism. Amir Timur as well as Genghis Khan considered sovereignty to be the personal property of the ruler. That means they could transfer it to anybody, they could divide it up among anyone. Okay? And it was a consequence of this that the Mongol succession law or the Tura came to be adopted. Kya tha ye? That after the death of the emperor, his authority, his empire would be divided among his remaining sons. Okay? So sovereignty as the ruler's personal property. Okay? So this was another feature of the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty. While Genghis Khan and Amir Timur had used this to divide the empire between their different sons, Babar used the idea that sovereignty is the ruler's personal property and the ruler is free to do with it whatever he wants to transfer it directly to Humayun without dividing it. Okay? Fourthly, since universalism and imperialism was part and parcel of the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty, how was it that royal despotism and imperialistic ambitions were to be projected? किस मीडियम के थ्रू इसको हासिल किया जाएगा? कैसे राजा का इन्फ्लुएंस बढ़ाया जाएगा? Emphasis on what? Spiritual strength or military strength? Both spiritual and military strength. Military despotism and kingship as a spiritual station or spiritual institution. This was part and parcel of both the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty. Further, since it is the destiny of the ruler to establish his rule across the world, and since this is part of God's plan, God's will, should things such as language or race factor into who is given preference within the empire, or should the ruler adopt an open approach towards all? ओपन अप्रोच टुवर्ड्स ऑल यूनिवर्सलिज्म का आइडिया है दैट सिंस ऑल मेन आर द क्रिएशंस ऑफ गॉड एंड ऑल ऑफ देम डिजर्व love and respect from the representative of God on earth, the ruler should not discriminate between them on the basis of language or color. ठीक है, अगर भगवान को इतना ही एक रेस से या लैंग्वेज से प्यार होता तो सबको ही एक ही जबान देता, एक ही कलर देखा, एक ही रंग रूप देता. बट डाइवर्सिटी इज पार्ट ऑफ गॉड्स ग्रेट प्लान एंड दस racial and linguistic non-discrimination and meritocracy were part and parcel of Babur's theory of sovereignty. And using this, what did he do? He was able to break the monopoly of Afghan tribal chiefs on the positions of power. He was able to displace them, impose royal absolutism, and elevate people from different backgrounds to high office, including not only some groups of Afghans who had become loyal to him, but also Rajputs, other Indian Muslims, Turks, Iranis, etc. So this is what gave the future basis for the heterogeneous Mughal nobility. Okay? So in this manner, by introducing the Turco-Mongol theory of sovereignty instead of the Afghan theory of sovereignty, Babur had ensured royal despotism, administrative centralization, etc. And with the evolution of Mughal kingship, the Turco-Mongol elements of sovereignty became even stronger within the empire. Okay? So what is it that you have written, Abhi? टर्को-मंगोल थ्योरी ऑफ सॉवरेंटी कैरेक्टराइज्ड बाय ये सारी चीजें आप लिख सकते हो. ठीक है. Another important way in which Babur contributed to the future process of Mughal empire building is giving the foundations of a liberal religious and social policy. In one of his letters to Humayun, he advised the future emperor not to interfere with the internal religious affairs of Hindus, to avoid cow slaughter, and to pursue a close relationship with Rajputs because Babur felt them to be trustworthy and loyal. ठीक है, तो राइट डाउन. कितना हुआ है? सी तक हुआ अभी. डी लिखो. इट वॉज बाबर who laid the foundations for the future liberal social policy of the Mughals. सब पॉइंट लिखो. He once advised Humayun not to interfere in the religious affairs of Hindus and avoid cow slaughter. Full stop. Similarly, subpoint. Similarly, Babur also advised Humayun to respect the ulema, but not allow them to dictate terms. ठीक है? So thus, in many ways, Babar was the precursor to the liberal religious policy of the Mughals later on. डी हुआ है, ई लिखो. Babar also laid the foundations of the future Mughal Rajput relationship, which played a crucial role in empire building and consolidation. Empire building and consolidation. कैसे? सब पॉइंट लिखो. He had his two sons, Humayun and Kamran, marry Rajput princesses from the house of Medni Rai. Right? Thus, it was he who initiated the practice of matrimonial alliances between Mughals and Rajputs. Write down. Thus, it was Babar who initiated, इसी में ही, इसी सब पॉइंट में ही. Thus, it was Babar who initiated the practice of establishing matrimonial alliances with Rajput rulers. Next sub point. Further, he also advised Humayun. Advised Humayun to be wary of Afghans and instead cultivate close relations with the Rajputs who were trustworthy in his eyes. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट मेन पॉइंट लिखो। therefore while Babar may not have had the opportunity to give strong roots to the Mughal Empire, comma, his actions definitely prepared fertile grounds for Mughal Empire building in the future. Full stop. In this scenario, comma, Babar appears not only as a great conqueror, but also a visionary empire builder. ठीक है, so these are the important things to know about Babar, except for one more thing, his autobiography, the तुज़ू-के बाबरी और the बाबरनामा. This is a relatively lengthy topic और आज हमारे पास टाइम नहीं है, so I'm ending this lecture right now and we'll be covering this in tomorrow's class. इसके बाद कवर करेंगे हुमायूं को and then following that we'll be covering शेर शाह सूरी and his contributions. ठीक है, चलिए then. If there are no doubts, I'm going to end this class now.